Luciana?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Barely
good.
over the music. We probably ought to play that music a little softer. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and we're back. We're back. Today's June 8th, 2023. And we're with Catherine Hine, resigned attorney from Ohio. And I'm Luciana.
Welcome, everybody, to another broadcast. And we've called this one Wishful Thinking is Not a Plan. I also wanted to say stinking thinking is not a plan.
Right.
And we run into a lot of that. And I just want to preface before I forget, because I probably will, this broadcast with a citation from 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 1. Dare any of you, having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? That's exactly what we're doing.
Right.
All the time.
Right.
We go to resolve our disputes in front of people who have nothing but evil in their hearts. So, and then we expect something good to happen from that. We consider them to be the legitimate arbiters of our disputes.
Yeah.
When they're not. And they even have admitted that they aren't.
Yeah, and many seriously believe that they are the highest authority. They are the highest authority is what they believe.
Well, but they say different things, and that what they say changes over time. At the beginning of the country, they admitted that we were the source of all law. Right. And then later, it just slowly, the thinking started to change so that we were less in control every year. We were less in control and they were more in control. It was so subtly, so slowly, we barely noticed it.
Right.
And the whole time, they're brainwashing us. I wanted to focus on a little bit on the fact on the land grabs, which you've been researching today also, I know, Luciana. And
correct.
Tell me, what was your impression when you did the research? Because there's a lot of people out there talking about this or that strategy. If, some bankster wants to grab your land, or the so-called corporate county wants to grab your land, or some, and I guess in Great Britain, they've just got, we just want your land, and we don't even have to say, like supposedly in the US, that if we're grabbing your land for a public purpose, then we have to provide just compensation. Well, some people just don't want to sell. And what is that about? They want to keep their family home. They want to keep their family farm, and they don't want a railroad to go through it. So they're doing other things like, making spoiling the land, like we've seen in East Palestine. If they make that land unmarketable, then they'll be able. They're not just going to grab it. They don't want to just grab the land. They want to grab it at a good price too.
Right, or free for some reason, if they can. Just take it somehow from you.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could deem you incompetent, give you a guardian, and next thing you know, they've gone through all your money where they had to now sell your home to pay the guardian and court fees, and they end up with your home one way or another.
Yeah, and that's if you've made the mistake of taking your dispute or allowing it to be taken to the bad guys, who are probably getting I mean, through their corporations, they're definitely getting a cut of what these land grabbers are getting.
It's frightening.
Yeah, but we're not without remedy. But we have to remember that we have to. If you're going to hope that somebody in your in your circle is that a group is going to help you stand up to these tyrants, you gotta give them something, some ammo. I don't mean for weapons necessarily, but you've got to give them a common law court order that y'all have to stay off our land, and we can do that. We the people have the authority and the ability to do that. But instead, we're getting, I just saw in one of the articles that you pulled up, one of the comments was the plan she had was she was going to work 2 or 3 jobs so that she could pay the property tax. Well, what are you going to do? Work 5 or 6 jobs when they triple it, when they quadruple it? You're going to still keep paying them. That's the plan, right?
Not much of a plan, right?
No, I mean, because there's no limit to what they'll do once you've given them that inch, and they're taking mile after mile after mile.
Right.
But you don't have to do it that way. What is property tax? So first of all, it's prohibited. Now, and that's the Constitution. I'll cite it later when
we could put it in the I think we should put it in the comments too after the broadcast. We could do that.
Right. Okay. As a direct form of taxation, direct taxation always meant land tax, and that's why stop calling your words important things. Stop calling your private property. Stop calling it real estate. If you call it real estate, you're getting into their area.
What should we be calling it?
Private property. Private property or land.
Our land and private property.
Right. So they are prohibited, but you have the right to your own land, and you certainly have the right to have a place where you can, that's your home. Now they want to make that a privilege so that you have to beg and grovel for the homestead exemption if the land they're trying to grab is in fact your home. And that they're not allowed to grab it to begin with. So instead of looking at whenever you're claiming an exemption, and I think we've talked about this before in the connection with the jabs, whenever you're claiming an exemption, you're saying, you're my daddy, you're the boss, you do, but I just want a special privilege here, an exemption from your ruling on high. That's not a plan. But you can give up your rights. You are free to contract away those rights if you're foolish enough to do so. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways we do that with land is we record our deeds. That's how we contract in. We record our deeds.
So you're saying our deeds do not need to be recorded?
No, they want you to think that you can't own property unless they know all about it and it's in their system. No, people have been transferring property, land, personal property for centuries before they got it into their heads, and even as of the time of the revolution in America. So, you transfer property. I have the freedom to give you, a piece of land, and I do it by a deed. I don't have to record that deed. You don't have to record that deed. The donee, the person who receives the land, it's really their decision because they're the ones that get the original deed. And I don't believe that the bad guys will even accept a copy of a deed as to record it.
Okay, now here's a question. What if the person selling you the land had the deed recorded with the county? Now, when they sell you the land, now you own it. And I think we've run across a situation like this. Now you own that land or that home, and the county still has the documentation from the previous person.
Okay, let's
say now they assume that home belongs to that person, even though you've owned it for 10 years.
Well,
you bought it from that person.
You provide a written notice to whoever's running that recorder's office that you're the agent for the transferor and the transferee, and you don't authorize the deed to be recorded, and they may want to correct their records. It's not up to you to correct their records.
Right.
But you're extending the courtesy to them of letting them know your records are wrong. The property is not recorded that way.
Yeah, and I would suggest certified mail.
It's not titled that way.
And send it what is it? Certified or registered? What kind of mail so that you have a recording?
No, we don't want to use certified because the U.S. Postal Service or U.S. Post Office will lose the mail, guaranteed.
Yeah. Well,
you do certificates of mailing or personal delivery.
That's probably the best. Yeah, personal
delivery is probably the best, especially if it's right there in your own county. You send, and you don't do the service yourself because you'll be accused of rigging it and that you didn't really serve it. So you get somebody else, and that somebody else will later do an affidavit that says that it's been served and exactly how they served the people. So then you own the land. As some sort of protection, you might want to post a sign on your property that if anybody's interested in that property, they should check with and they check with the recorder. The recorder's information is incorrect. That's all you need to say. You don't have to say, Mary and John Smith own the property. You don't have to disclose that much. But, anybody who's bona fide and is really trying to take the land or buy it, they should know better than to rely on what the corporate recorder's office says, because that information may not be correct. But the point is that the recording is considered a benefit to you. And I guess in a way it sort of is, because it alerts the world that you own the property. But if you choose to, maybe I don't want to pay $5,000 a year for the privilege of this recorder's office saying that I'm the owner.
Right.
Maybe
right.
I don't need that. And maybe it isn't worth $5,000 a year to me.
Yeah. And that's where the taxation of the property comes in, because it's recorded, right?
That's right, because you're paying for a benefit. This is what they call a compelled benefit. They want you to think you don't have a choice. You have to record it. Otherwise, you haven't deeded it. Yeah, you have. And when you push the point, they do that.
Yeah.
So, but that's the base. That's the only conceivable lawful basis is that they can charge you for that benefit. But if I bring you, let's say I bring you a new dress and you can't stand it, and but I'm bringing this to you. This is going to benefit you, and that'll be $10,000. don't think you're going to pay me for that. But that's what the corporate goons at the county want you to do. They want you to pay them for this compelled benefit, so-called.
Yeah.
So what you want to do, you just want to do the process carefully enough that you're not contracting back in. You're always dealing with the recorder or whoever that is, and the county commissioners and the sheriff, whoever you think is later going to come and harass you. You're going to want to deal with them as people, because that's all we can do. Deal with them as people.
Right. And of course, they want to be acknowledged by their titles all the time. Yeah.
But they don't, even in their statutes and codes, which they're very careful. They don't apply to men and women. They apply to persons. And once you make it clear, you're not one of their fictional persons. A person, remember, in their world is a legal fiction. It's just a structure put in place so that they can pretend they're dealing with you while they're really dealing with this legal fiction. And if you agree to act as if you were that legal fiction, then voila, you're in their world, the world of the dead legal fictions.
Do you think really that there's any like, let's stick with judges out there who aren't aware of that?
I'm sure there probably are some that are not, but I don't know, maybe most aren't. I never heard anybody talk about it when I was in the practice.
Yeah.
Ever. But then I didn't do a lot of real property law, land law. So, a lot of this I've learned since then. Now, the other way that land grabs can happen is through mortgage foreclosure. And here's the scam with mortgage foreclosure and the banksters that inflict it. You sign a promissory note with the lender, so-called. That lender is not going to end up lending you one dime. But you're going to agree to pay all this. Say the property goes for $100,000, and you're going to pay X amount, compound interest and all that stuff. And they're going to cut a check to the seller.
Yeah. So where is that money coming from, Catherine?
It's coming from your own, the borrower's Social Security trust, also known as the SSUAKV trust. So you're paying for it. This is the trust that they set up when you got your when they formed that legal fiction all capital name.
This is very important for people. If you could kind of just talk about that a little bit, because this SQV, because so many people don't understand it yet. It's out there. The information is out there, and people just don't want to look at it. They don't want to believe you. And I don't understand how if you don't want to research it, others have researched it, and here's what's going on. And people just want to keep their eyes closed to it. It's very frustrating for everyone else trying to fix all these wrongs, which is impossible, but we try to do as much as we can. But as far as this SQV trust, you didn't know about it for many years, right?
Right. And I'm not 100% on it now, but I think historically it came from, because it's, I think it's Latin, not French, SSUAKV. It came from the Romans, as all bad things seem to be coming from in law. And it happened at the time. They love to spring this stuff on people at times of catastrophe, and apparently they burned London to the ground back in the 1600s, I think it was, and that created, the catastrophe, the disaster that they needed. Never let a good crisis go to waste. That's been, their motto for a long time.
Still today.
So in the confusion, they decided that, and I believe that is when they created this presumption that if they hadn't heard from you in 7 years, you're presumed dead. And then they can take your stuff. That's the real deal. They want to be able to take your stuff with you out of the way. So that's really how it happened. The trust was, well, you left this farm here after the London fire, so we're going to hold it for you for safekeeping until you come back. If we don't hear from you in the 7 years, then it's presumed that you died, and then the land it's called escheating to the state. And so we get it after you don't show up for 7 years. And they do something similar, I think, with the birth certificate. If you don't, at age 7 years old, rebut the presumptions of the birth documents, then they get your stuff, which is created in the Social Security Trust, which is just the modern version of the Seshwe KV Trust. They don't create that trust to benefit you. They create it so that they give themselves plausible deniability against later accusations of thievery. But it doesn't, because we know the rule. We know the trick now. Or some of us.
Isn't it something? Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
So, but the deal with the lender, of course, is that they aren't lending you anything. And when you sign your name, you're just authorizing them to get the money for the seller from your Social Security Trust.
Wow.
And then you agree to pay for the house a second time with compounded interest. Yeah.
Wow. That's really something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why everybody wouldn't be looking into that, especially if they own property,
Well, even if they did look into it, they're probably going to look into it wrong. What they're probably going to do is they're going to file something somewhere in the system.
Or ask an attorney.
Yeah, right.
My attorney wouldn't lie to me. Oh.
Right. So it's really pretty simple, and you just and I'm happy to show anybody who wants to hold still long enough to learn it, what you would do in a given situation. Now, the sooner the sooner you know that there's a problem or there could be a problem, you ought to get focus on the solution sooner rather than later, because now they continue to not have authority. Let's say you wait till they file for foreclosure, and then they get a judgment of foreclosure, and then they do a sheriff sale, and then you're still on the land. Then they bring in they go to a different part of their cabal, usually a municipal so-called court, and they get a judgment of eviction. Then they can bring out the big guns, and they go on your land, and they rip you out of your house, and they throw your belongings on the sidewalk, or they get one of their business partners, some corporation that specializes in cleanups, like whether it be after any kind of eviction. They just go in, take all the stuff, and load it up in a truck and take it to the dumpster, and salvage what they can.
Yeah. And other times, if they have trouble serving on eviction, let's say let's say someone has an appeal on eviction or something like that. They have found ways now where I'm sure they've done it many times, but I'm familiar with this other one where someone had an appeal on the eviction in their home. Well, here you go, finally with them again. And they came and knew they could, because she had the appeal, they couldn't just kick this person out or evict them. They had to go through the appeals process first, but they wanted that land, they wanted that property. So they worked it out with one of the probate judges, worked it out with SWAT, worked it out with police, that what they would do is probate her and say they thought she might be a little crazy. They need to assess her. So let's go serve a probate on her, where now SWAT team and sheriffs and all can knock down her door and take her, because now they have an order for 3 days to probate her. And
just time for the new owner,
just in time for them to clean out the house and take it over. Isn't that something? And yeah, so many, a whole team of people and a whole team involved in it and putting this plan together.
Yeah, it's a whole cottage industry. You know, the clean out people, the when they take an elderly person's land and they got to declare them, they don't have to, but they often do declare them incompetent, whether they are or not. And they take them out of their home and they put them in a nursing home, which will generally kill them within 6 months. I think that's how long the hospice money lasts. So it's always about the money, you know. And then during that time, that gives the guardianship corporation a chance to make all its arrangements, and everybody gets paid. And there might not be even enough for the headstone, which is what happened in the Rosanna Miller case, which is all over the internet. I'm not giving up any confidential information.
Yeah, and Geraldine Stancic, I think, from Columbus, right here in Ohio, and she was probated. I think they kept her for a few years, you know, under her protest, until finally one psychiatrist came forward and said she's fine to handle her own matters, but it wasn't, and they had to release her. They had to get a court order to release her finally. But by that time that they took and sold her home, sold threw everything in her home, memories, pictures, everything. Sold her home for, I think it was a couple $100,000. And now I think that home just sold recently again or something for something like 3 times that much. This is insane. And she's living in squalor. Yeah. They have not given her back any of these years that they took from her. Nothing that they stole from her. Everything's just gone. Well, I guess she's okay to manage her own matters. She always was. This is so sad.
Well, except none of us really, most of us are not really. If we don't know what the scam is, then, you know, we're not really knowledgeable enough to avoid the consequences of that. I don't know that they would have had to release her. They just decided it was better for the corporation to turn her loose after they'd gotten most of it anyway. So that they delay long enough so that that's what they can do.
Yeah.
But, you know, you have all of the claims that in a foreclosure or a fraud closure, whether it's from a lender or from the corporate county, you have all the claims that you would have in any time they try and drag you into their fake tribunal. You have the absence of subject matter jurisdiction for multiple reasons that we've discussed on this broadcast, but just for those who missed that, there's they have the judge really isn't a judge, and the court isn't really a court. So whatever they say, and the legislature isn't really a lawmaking body either. So at every level, it's all just a show. And once we present that to them as a fact in a formal notice that your so-called court isn't really a court, it's a private for-profit corporation. The so-called judge isn't really a judge because he's prohibited from even acting in any position of a public trust by the original 13th. And then some other stuff. He's an unregistered foreign agent, and they will agree to all of it. And then they will just go on their merry way. Usually around the second or third notice, they're rethinking what they're going to do, though. So, but this is where it's going to make a big difference if the people start standing up for each other. And when it gets down to, they usually go the foreclosure, then they call it a forcible entry and detainer or eviction action, and then they send the bailiff out to try and get you out voluntarily, as if it's voluntary, which it's not. And then if that doesn't work, then they bring in the bigger guns. And so I believe that and this has been true in the past. I mean, we can't learn from history. I don't know what we're going to do, but there's a photograph that Facebook deleted from my post about a year ago, where the county sheriff was out there trying to evict a widow from her home, from the land where she lived, and exempt property in their system. And it's got this photograph. It's an old black and white, probably from the 40s, I'm thinking, of a bunch of neighbors. They had this sheriff down on the ground and they were punching him out.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that we should all do that, but I'm just saying, just to see friends and neighbors just stand up for what's right,
If nothing else, to bear witness to the atrocity that's going on, and to let the people, just go eyeball to eyeball with them. We know what you are now. Is this what you're going to tell your children you do all day? Is you rip people out of their homes that they paid for twice?
Especially a widow.
Yeah. And that's their homestead.
What state was that? Do you remember?
I don't know. I don't know that I ever did know that. But it was always the intention of Congress in transferring public lands to each state republic, certainly at least to the Ohio Republic, in the Enabling Act, that there would be no taxing power. That's what we fought the revolution over, right? No taxation without representation. But generally no taxation to begin with, because the people were the sovereigns, not these private for-profit corporations. Taxing is a feature of sovereignty. And these people, they're not even our public servants. They're agents of a private for-profit corporation that got delegated the duty of the actual public servant, who might be the one that got in whose name this is being done. But they don't have any authority. They're not sovereign. Taxation is about sovereignty. Now, a lot of people will tell you, "Oh, you have to track your land back to statehood," right? And it's not like you can even hire a title company to do that for you, because they'll only go back 40 years, because they're oriented toward the fake corporate system and their statutes about marketable title. And in their system, if you can go back 40 years and there's no other adverse claims, then you're good to go. But because of the presumptions that are created, or the protections, I should say, that the Constitution provided for people to be landowners not subject to tax, that's any efforts to do so for multiple reasons are not lawful. And they will always agree that what they're doing is not lawful.
Right.
So,
Right.
Okay, here's the property tax section. Property taxes are ad valorem. That, in other words, they are based on the so-called value of the land, according to them. And they are direct taxes. They must be proportioned. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and Article 1, Section 9, Clause 4 of the federal Constitution. I believe they're referring to it's either the 1781 or the 1787 Constitution. They, unless they're apportioned, and they never apportion them, they would have to establish that the tax that you're paying or that you're being charged is the same per square foot that people in California are paying, and they're not able to do that. And they're not doing that. Go ahead.
If I find it, I'll put it in the comments. I can't find it right now, but there is a, I don't know if I think you've seen it. There's a YouTube video or a documentary, and it's a couple of IRS whistleblowers who said they were agents who worked for the IRS for many, many years. They worked for the IRS, and that someone put out there that they would they'd pay anybody $50,000 if they could show him the law that says that you have to pay these taxes. And the IRS agent who worked for the IRS said, I'm gonna find it. I'll find it and I'll send it to him. That's 50. I think he even put it in a public paper or something. And the agents that were looking into it, I'll find the documentary and I'll post it because it's very shocking to watch. They said all these years we've worked for the IRS, then to find out there was not actually a law that states that you had to pay all these taxes.
No, but they don't have laws. They don't about anything. All they have is statutes and codes. They have corporate policy, and that's it.
They went after this whistleblower pretty hard, I think, afterwards. But she was actually doing teaching classes and stuff because trying to make people understand this. She was an IRS agent for years. Like I said,
she was probably teaching people how to wade through the 10,000 pages of IRS code, though.
Right.
I've seen those. Yeah, and those get very, very complicated. And then, you start claiming that, and Mel Stamper does the same thing in his book, Fruit from a Poisonous Tree, which is otherwise a good reference book, but he seems caught up in, if they say it, it must be true.
Right.
And so he wants to tells people, you're an unregistered alien or something. I don't know what it is. Stop claiming their labels. Because when you do that, you're going to take everything that goes with that label. And if you're not ready to dig through all 10,000 pages of that IRS code and all the other statutes and codes and all the decisions that have ever interpreted what you thought was pretty clear cut and maybe not so clear cut, they're going to get you with that. And even if you did all that, and you were still cool with asserting your position, they would still come up with something else. They would ignore your argument.
Yeah. and
Oh,
codes and statutes and their addendums are they're endless, and they just continue to create more uh, whatever benefits them in the end, and
right.
they expect you to know all of them. They don't even know all of them. It's ridiculous.
I would like to draw people's specific attention to Allison and Michael Reese of Cleveland Heights, and they own their home and their land free and clear of any mortgage. That's not in dispute. And they chose to not record the deed that they received from a family member who had been paying the property tax. And um, they that's where they raised their family. They don't owe the property tax. They don't owe a mortgage. And yet there's this entity, this legal fiction entity that claims that they bought the Reese's land and home um, on a
Sheriff sale, right?
yes, right,
Yeah,
yeah, at a fire sale price too, of course.
yeah. They put their land up for a sheriff sale. I, I'm still
Mhm.
shocked at this.
Well, they're doing that every day. The land
Yeah.
grabs are just getting insane. And as you found out, they I think their goal now, according to Biden or somebody, is they're going to grab like 30% of of the land that exists. They're always finding ways that they can claim that which they are constitutionally prohibited from claiming. And we can undo those claims. Uh, for example, I think there's a 30-mile strip along the southern border running from California all the way over to the East Coast that they transferred to to be a United Nations biosphere, something like that. Did we, the people, say that was okay? I don't think we did. This is a Treaty of La Paz, I think
Treaty
it's
of
called.
La Paz.
La Paz,
And
LAPAZ.
okay, when did that happen?
I'm not sure. It was in the 20th century sometime, probably after 1950.
Didn't we
So,
also find out that wasn't I think it was the state of I think you was it Utah that the United Nations owned like big corporate buildings that we thought were public governmental buildings, and then find out they were owned by the United Nations. It gets in Utah where they have a lot of that.
I know I had seen a video of a woman running into some woman in a United Nations getup, some kind of a costume that said she's from the United Nations, and saying, "Who are you and why are you in my state?" And of course, she was very snotty with her, and and there, if you look there's definitely a huge UN presence in the United States. But what does that mean? What is the UN? It's another private for profit corporation. It's just another uh, criminal racket. And this particular criminal racket with the UN is based on this their favorite notion of world domination. And they can, if they think if they dress up the UN and the UN talks about peace and love and human rights, and they always have to relabel everything that God granted us to begin with as if they created it, you know. And that's how people are swallowing it,
Hmm.
and they're using their terminology. Whenever you hear sustainability, resilient cities, you're talking about internationalist United Nations takeovers.
Yeah.
And smart grid technology and smart appliances. Well, that's the reason you can't buy decent washers and dryers and refrigerators, because they have to be smart, and they have to be, what is that called, where they figure out what's wrong with them, and they take care of themselves, right? They're robots, really, is what they are.
Mm.
And you can't get something that really functions well unless you buy something used. But if you won't, once you buy that, and they want to cram it down your throat, you have to buy. You have to buy. Well, if that's all there is, of course, that's what you have to buy. And if they destroy the good, usable stuff that doesn't have this technology in it, then
Yeah.
then you're buying. Your dishwasher's spying on you. And they
Yeah.
are. Um, but then if you go into debt to buy this stuff that they tell you, you must buy this, even if you have to go into debt, but we'll finance it, and just put up your house, and we'll finance these horrible appliances you don't want to buy that we're making you buy. What a
Right.
scam. And then when you can't make the payments, we'll take your house.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for a while.
Yeah.
But if you know what's going on, you're not going to fall for it, and you're going to start developing your own
Yeah.
parallel economies, your
Yeah.
own alternatives. You won't have to get the latest thing.
Right.
You won't necessarily have to work for a corporation, and be subject to their indignities.
Yeah. I just, regarding people thinking the United Nations are all that. You remember Dr. Zena Crenshaw,
Oh,
right?
I do. Zena Crenshaw.
Yeah.
Yeah, may she rest in peace.
May she rest in peace. I just, okay, here
But
we go.
she fell for it. She was an attorney. She fell for the UN
Well,
propaganda.
yeah. Well, let me show real quick. Let me just share this. Because people don't sometimes seem to understand. They're like, well, what's wrong with, okay, do you see this? Okay, this was a letter written by, this is one of the letters written to the United Nations regarding stuff going on with the United Nations. And what they were doing was they wanted to report acts of misconduct, and just saying attorneys and we're all complaining and nothing's being done. Now there's a problem here. And there was this letter, and then there was another one in 2022 that she sent just 3 months. Oh, hold on, let me share this one.
She was basically asking the United Nations to help.
Yeah, asking them to help, but she was exposing what was going on here. And then this is what happened 3 months afterwards. 3 months afterwards. I'm just saying that's kind of quite a coincidence, if you ask me.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm sure she was murdered. Yeah.
Yeah, this is quite frightening.
Right, but see, it really drives home the point to me, and I've heard this point made before, that you make yourself safer the more you resist and you don't partake in their rackets. If you and I've seen this explained, even people who say they're doing common law. I was talking to some supposedly common law people in Nevada recently, and they were explaining how they have to basically, to get new people to be members, they have to lie to them a little bit. They have to tell them, because people are too stupid, they say, to hear the entire truth. So we'll tell them that their vote counts, and we'll do it. It'll be a little mix of truth and lies, so that we can get them on board to our common law whatever. This came to me from a guy that they're forming a supposedly a common law private membership association, a court, an assembly that's a private membership association. Well, if you're a court and you're acting as a true sovereign, you're not going to hide behind the anonymity of a private membership association. There's a time and a place for a private membership association, and I like them. They're excellent for you and your spouse and whoever you want who are common law free people to operate this common law membership association in owning land, for example. But if you're operating a court for the public, you don't want to be private. That's like you're a secret organization and you're pretending you're a court.
Yeah.
So
there's a Michael D. And I don't know if he wanted to speak.
Yeah, Michael, do you have a question or comment?
Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear you now.
I ain't got my glasses on, so I'm not sure what's all on this thing.
Oh,
are you on the road right now?
Yeah, I'm on the road.
Oh, okay, that's Michael. Hi, Mike.
How you doing?
How you doing? It's good to see you.
Hanging in.
All right. So we were doing a lot, some discussions about the land grabs and stuff going on in Ohio and other places. Then we got into discussions about the United Nations having so much to say around here.
And remember, just because they're grabbing something, and even when they take title to supposedly, because they said that they did, they're not taking a deed from a living person. They're taking a living man. They're taking an administrator's deed. They're taking some sort of fake transfer document when they take title. So there are automatically, you can see on the surface of the transaction, this is a fraudulent transaction, and fraud voids out everything.
Yeah,
so
fraud vitiates everything.
Yeah, and including those fraudulent treaties, like the Treaty of La Paz, where they transferred supposedly a 30-mile strip to a UN biosphere. That's fraudulent, and that can be set aside. It's not like it's all over. People who did it can be liable, and they are liable, and to give up their personal treasures, their bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, and all that stuff that they got, to compensate the people, or an attempt to, for at least some of the harm that they've done. That's how we get it back. So,
yeah.
You don't have to make it hard. You don't have to wade through their complicated, statutes and codes and
forms and more forms and permission slips and all.
Right. Yeah. So the simple deal with property tax is you're paying for the benefit of having your land recorded. If you don't want that benefit, don't record it. And let's say it's already recorded in the name of Mary and John Doe. Well, then you can transfer. Mary and John Doe can transfer their land to the Doe Private Membership Association, the Doe Common Law Private Membership Association,
Mhm.
and that stays private. But what you do, let's say, is Mary, who's an agent for the land that was recorded. She's also the agent for the private membership association, so she can go to the people, always the people who run this county operation, this scam, and let them know your records are wrong. The prior, the deed that you have in the name of Mary and John Doe is incorrect, which it has become because Mary and John Doe transferred the property. They deeded it
Right.
privately, private,
Right.
and that's none of their business.
Hey, Michael,
Yeah,
how's the air quality out where you are?
Yeah.
seems to be all right.
It's
What area are you
crazy
in?
stuff going on.
Right now, I'm in Tip City, Ohio.
Oh, okay. That's along the western edge of Ohio, as I recall. Southwestern.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's a Meyer distribution center.
Okay.
I didn't know that they had those in Ohio.
A buyer distribution center for.
I thought he said Meyer.
The grocery store Meyer.
Are you still doing the festivals?
Yeah. Yeah, we
Okay.
set up for one on Sunday.
Where is that?
It's in North Canton.
Okay. What's the name of it?
It's the North Canton JC North Canton JC Fair.
North Canton what fair?
What?
The North Canton JC Fair.
JC.
Fair. Okay. So what are they? All right. So they're going to have rides and sell food and crafts and stuff like they usually do at every festival in Ohio.
Bear with me a second. I gotta go get checked in.
Okay. All right.
We'll pause.
Well, yeah, we had. I'll let Mike explain about that when.
I'll bring him back. I didn't want everyone hearing his checking in information.
Right. Definitely. But that's an opportunity too for this. We're in festival season in Ohio, and I think Ohio has more festivals in spring and summer than any other state.
They do have a lot of fairs, a lot.
And it's an opportunity to get your flyers out. Now, we had an experience a couple of years ago. We were wanting to put a flyer out, and Mike was just going to distribute it from his food trailer, and they had a meltdown over it.
Really?
Yeah. About how dare we think we had the right to free speech in their festival.
So what was it about the court? Was it about the mass? What was it about?
I think it was just about our formation of our common law court. I think that's all it was. Huh. I mean that's plenty. That's plenty for them to be upset about.
Wow.
Because we know that we're on their radar, but the thing is, we don't give them ammo. And what I see consistently with the other groups, which have been infiltrated, of course, by the Anna Von Rices and the David Straits of this world.
Right.
And they are.
Okay, I'm back.
Hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike. Yeah, you want to tell us about what was that? Remember a couple of years ago, I asked you to distribute some flyers at one of these festivals, and they were real nasty about it. Remember that?
Yeah, that was at the Pickle Run, and we lost that spot.
Oh man! So they held a grudge. They not only prohibited you from exercising your First Amendment right, they're holding a grudge. Oh wow.
Yeah, they wouldn't let us back, saying something to the effect of they had the school booster club doing the same thing we did, and that was a lie.
Mm. So you can't say anything twice ever, right?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. Y'all gonna have to figure out who are safe people and who are not safe people. And at times like this, it doesn't pay to hang out with the unsafe people. And or people that want you to swallow some lies because you like some other stuff that they say. Yeah. And I think too many of us are doing that. And we've done that for years when we were their slave registered voters. We kept assuming that if we just changed the nature of the slave master, that would mean we weren't slaves anymore. And of course, it didn't mean that. And it will never mean that. So. But hopefully you can try that again. At some other festival. We shouldn't, let this discourage us. I'll bring up Michael and Allison Reese again, who are being threatened with an illegal fraud closure because of not paying the county's fraudulent property tax when they did not register, they did not record their land with the corporate county. But the corporate county wants its pound of flesh anyway. So they don't owe a mortgage, and they're in danger of losing their home.
They've been served notice, right? I believe.
Hi, Angie. They were not served notice of the original fraud closure.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
They were. Then they did a second action in their system, an eviction, and they did name them then. But of course, these fake tribunals, including the municipal court, so-called, of Cleveland Heights, isn't really a court, folks, just like none of these municipal courts are. And I think they're actually more closely tied to the corporate United Nations even than they are to the corporate United States. But one thing for sure is a corporation can't be a court, and they've admitted it. And so they have no authority.
All right.
So we're just wanting people to think about, what if this happened to you? What if it was your home that, and you can say all day long, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I would pay everything that they asked for. No matter if I had to sell my kids to do it or whatever I had to do, I would just pay and pay and pay and pay and pay. Well, even if I didn't know it, and you're stupid if you don't. Well, there are other ways, and there are definitely people who are not paying. I'm not paying property tax to the corporate, so-called Ross County, Ohio, and that's how I did it. And I wouldn't even have been able to claim a homestead exemption in their system. Those were not my homesteads, but they're homesteads of other people.
Yeah. And how long have you been in that status where you're not paying taxes, and they haven't bothered you, right?
No, they haven't. About 3 years.
What's going on with those ones that they're trying to take their house when they didn't record it?
Reese's. Yeah.
They scheduled a so-called a bailiff repo or something for Monday. However, and I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think when the bailiff goes out first of all, the bailiff isn't equipped to take all the property, all the furniture and so forth out of the home, or to start beating people over the head or shooting people or any of that they have otherwise done. So they will schedule something else, probably for a writ of assistance. And then they will try and get, bigger and badder guys to come with them, like from the corporate sheriff's department, currently being run by a man named, I don't remember his first name. Last name is Pretel, Pretel. I mean, you blink your eyes and there's a different sheriff in Cuyahoga County. But this seems to be the current one. And if he was smart, he would not allow himself to be used to violate whatever oath he may have taken to the people. I don't know if he took an oath to the people or he just pretended to, like most of them do.
Yeah.
But,
well, what is he doing what's he doing or what has he done to try to stop him?
Oh, he's not going to stop him. I think all that we, at this stage of the game, in our resistance, all we can expect or reasonably hope for is that they won't, that some of the better members of the cabal will just not partake of what their fellow agents are doing. We'll take care of it. You just stay out of our way. And that'll be fine. Just don't come in with guns a-blazing with your SWAT teams and your independent contractors from whatever federal corporation decides to get in on the act. Let us deal with it. And that'll be fine. We don't want their help. We don't want their rulings. We don't want their interference. We don't want their help. We don't want their benefits. We don't want anything from them. Let us do what we do ourselves. Let us protect ourselves. Can we do it? That's the $64,000 question. Can we do it? Will we do it? We can do it. We obviously could do it. But will we? Would you want somebody to be standing up for you, if only to stand by and bear witness to what's going on if any of these criminals try and come on your property and take your land from you?
Yeah.
You would want your friends and neighbors to do the same.
Exactly.
And if they do, every time we push back, every time they back off. Now sometimes we get scared and we contract back in, and then it's same thing over again.
Yeah, they put the fear, their fear tactics into you, and next thing you know, you're taking a plea deal for something you never even did wrong because you just want the nightmare to end.
Right. Now, to his credit, to update what the case we talked about in Nevada, the Roger Hilligus case. Bless his heart, he's and we've put in the notices that because they're slow killing him, they're keeping him locked up. They've kept him locked up since October 22, depriving him of medication and beating him up every now and then, and the usual torture. And they have now offered him, well, we'll release you then. We'll release you, but we want you to wear an ankle monitor, and we want you to, check in every day or something with somebody, so we know exactly where you are, and we need to do this because we're the boss. And he won't do it. He says, you release me because you don't have any authority over me, or you just keep doing what you're doing. Why should I sign up for your ankle monitor and be locked up in some other location other than your dungeon?
That's hard. That's hard to do when you've been already, and they know that, to be locked up. I mean, already what, 6 months for doing nothing
since
wrong.
October 2022. So
Yeah, and I know that's hard to do for a lot of people, but he's doing it. You know.
And I don't think it would be necessary to risk your health to that degree, because we've already put in the notices that anything he signs, any representation of any that's made on his behalf by some court-appointed attorney that he doesn't want, none of what those statements are bind him. Those aren't binding on him. If he signs something, yeah, I agree to kiss your feet or do whatever. That's not a lawfully binding contract. And so he could agree to whatever and, just to be out of there. But he wants to be a man of his word, and, but do you really owe any duty of being honorable to those who are killing you?
Yeah, that's crazy.
But I think you do.
And
but
didn't they make some? I think 2 weeks ago in his recent hearing, 2 weeks ago, didn't they make some kind of comment? The judge made some kind of comment about an upcoming, what was it called?
Competency evaluation.
Yeah. Upcoming.
If you won't take our deal, you must be nuts. So we have to have you evaluated psychologically.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you're fighting this hard for what's right, something's wrong with you.
That's what?
Where's the contract that obligates him to do any of that?
I'm sorry, Michael. Can you say that once more?
Where is the contract that obligates him to do anything that they say?
There is no contract. There couldn't be while he's locked up. It's like signing a contract while there's a gun to your head.
Exactly.
You're not in a position to agree to anything.
Exactly.
So they don't see. Have they forgotten everything they learned in law school? I know a lot of them did go, Or they think, well, it's not going to matter, because if that issue is raised about, coercion, a coerced consent isn't consent, then our buddies will just ignore the issue. And it will be like it never happened. So, like I say, it's easier if you nip this stuff in the bud, and you get it earlier rather than later. And then you have time to serve the first notice and get them receiving it and admitting everything, and the second and the third notice. And then they're not in any kind of shape to do anything to you, as long as you don't mess up and contract back in with them.
Right.
So.
And they're tricky about getting you to contract back in.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can, like, in an unrelated area, you can, you decide that you don't want to run the risk of driving down the road without a driver's license. So you do get one of their completely unnecessary permission slips called a driver's license, so that some ignorant corporate code enforcer who thinks he's, enforcing law, which he's not doing, won't taser you by the side of the road. So we're not entirely free, obviously. So we can't really make free choices in a lot of areas, because there's going to be bad consequences for certain choices.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. So, but once you, once you have put your signature on something, even if it was coerced, you had a gun to your head, do a notice and explain that, because you don't want that signature hanging around somewhere in somebody's records without being rebutted by your notice that here's what the real deal was. And it was not true consent because of this, this, and this fact, which they admitted to. Then you're okay. Then and that's what people do also in their status documents. If I ever signed anything, any voter registration document, and they're going to use that to say I'm a guarantor, I'm a co-signer for their gambling debts, then I've got a document that says that I served them a notice saying that all bets are off. I'm not doing that. You lied to me about what voter registration really was, and so I'm disavowing that. And when you disavow stuff, don't use their forms to do it.
And don't file it in their system.
File it. Now they won't be able to help themselves. They're bureaucrats at heart. So when you if they've tried to drag you into one of their fake tribunals, and you serve the notice. You can serve the notice at the courthouse. You can serve the notice to the clerk, who's generally the agent for all the so-called judges, and you can serve receptionists at attorneys' offices. Any agent, anybody who's in charge of some office where somebody works, you can serve them there. You can serve them at home. You can do it in person. You can do it by going to U.S. Postal Service, but don't use any of their services except a certificate of mailing, because they'll screw it up accidentally on purpose.
Accidentally on purpose. You're good at that.
Yeah, they'll show you. We did this early. We made that mistake early on. Remember that, Luciana? We would have the tracking number. Yeah, the tracking number of how your notice is making its way through the postal system, and then they put in there that it's 2 months later, it's still in transit, where it will remain forever.
Or else, unless you screenshot everything, it disappears a couple months later that it got to a certain address, and then you have to pay them again just to get that documentation again. It's crazy.
Did you have anything you wanted to comment about or ask about, Angie?
Not that I can think of at the moment, but if I do, I'll say something.
Okay. I don't think any of us are muted right now, are we, Luciana?
No, okay. Nobody's muted.
Sometimes we do that just to cut down on the interference, the background noise.
Right.
Well, I don't know. We've been at it close to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think if there's any other point that I wanted to make about, the kind of thinking that we're engaged in, and including wishful thinking. If I just do nothing, it'll be okay. But it probably won't be.
Right.
Or if I just, and you hear this all the time, just spend a lot of money on a good attorney.
Yeah, get yourself a real good attorney.
Yeah.
The big law firm.
Yeah, right. I would like to, just in closing, kind of express my wish, or is more of a frustration now, about bringing in people who are at least they seem to be fighting other injustices like Children's Health Defense, for example. I was just watching one of their broadcasts. This is RFK Jr.'s group, and they are supposedly anti-vax, but they're not really anti-vax. They rope people in on that theory, for sure. They're just anti this particular one, say. The other ones, no, because they don't want to be labeled anti-whaters. No. So they have to do a little bit of lying and mix that little bit of lying with the truth that they hate the current jab situation, and it is killing people. They will tell you that much. And then they accompany that, though, with their lies. They will not talk. They will talk about natural healing modalities for the non-existent virus. And they won't talk about the fact that viruses probably don't exist, and the germ theory of contagion was disproved by 19th century scientists. They won't talk about that. So I'm just, and before I forget, I wanted to also bring out other groups that are always like, oh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. And yeah, a lot of the stuff they're threatening us with and actually doing is pretty awful. Go to Dane Wigington's broadcast, geoengineering, if you want to get scared out of your growth. But yeah, and I've approached him, the people who are doing the chemtrails, who are weather modifying, who are doing all this stuff to us, those are people, and people can be taken down and they can be made liable. We don't have to, go into fright mode every time Joe Biden signs some ridiculous bit of legislation that isn't legislation at all. We don't have to freak out over that. We can say, look, you're frightening the people. You're committing acts that are probably domestic terrorism in your system, and you're committing common law assaults because you're threatening people with that you're going to take action that's going to harm them, that's going to batter them if you don't do this. I mean, because everything that they do in their system is accompanied by the threat of violence. It's always a threat of violence. Even the property tax that we talked about earlier. If you don't pay us, we're going to come in, we're going to trespass on your land, whether you like it or not, and we're going to kill your dog, and we're going to do whatever we want. We have to stop that, and we can stop that and use their own admissions against them, because they will admit freely that they had no authority. So stop giving them more authority than they actually have. Just because they're threatening god awful stuff doesn't make the threats real. It doesn't mean that if they're saying it, they have authority to say it, because they don't. Only the authority we give them with our gullibility.
And there's so many gullible people. I don't know if it's the word is gullible or they're lazy.
That too. Pleasure seeking. Well, we're going to lose anyway, so I may as well just drink myself to death.
Yeah, or I'm too busy to deal with that. Whatever's going to happen, it's going to happen. We have no control over it. We hear that all the time.
Right. Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm just one woman, and we each are, one man or one woman, and there's a lot we can do and have demonstrated that we can do. And with God, all things are possible. And as long as we are operating our common law courts and grand juries, if we get to that point, and I think we will.
I think we will soon.
Yep. Yeah, we've got 10 people on our common law court now. And when we have 2 more, we will have enough for a common law pettit jury, if anybody would ever ask us for one. So far, they have not asked us for a jury, a trial by jury of their peers. But if they ever did, we wouldn't be able to provide it right now. But if we had 2 more members, we sure could. They're not entitled to it once they default. Because what are you going to have a trial by jury over if all the facts are already admitted? There's no point in it.
Right.
So, and then, and Barbara Stone had asked me this a while back. Well, what's the point of doing the 3 notice process? She wants to jump right into grand jury. Well, there's a certain logical. First of all, what are you going to do if you get a grand jury presentment? That's the common law term for a grand jury indictment. What are you going to do if you don't have a court to find them guilty or innocent? Maybe, it's possible that some grand jury would find somebody there's probable cause to believe they committed this crime, and then you take it to the pettit jurors and they say, no, we think there's reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
Then, but if you don't have that common law court to back up the common law grand jury, you don't have, a lawful structure in place. At least not in the traditional sense that we've been operating under in Anglo-American countries for the last 900 years.
Yeah.
We could do it differently, I suppose, and still be under the law of God, and only under the law of God. But and we could use some of their ideas. Sometimes they have good ideas. Sometimes they admit stuff that's useful, and we can use that. We're the people. We decide what the law is. So hopefully, as time goes on, we'll get more people to understand that, just ignoring what's going on is not going to make it go away.
Correct. It's done way too much. A lot of ignoring what's going on. A lot of ignoring, a lot of exposing, a lot of talking about it, but nobody looking to remedy the situation somehow. Unless it involves jumping through their hoops, jumping back into their system, begging for whatever, begging and filing.
Yeah, the less of that we do, the better. So, but yeah, stop going into their courts and stop their so-called courts and filing into their system. And once you also rebut the presumptions that you created with your signatures on the voter registration documents and others, then you're going to be in much better shape. You're going to be you can address them as a free man or woman, and you can address them as men and women, and they can't hide behind their titles and their corporate, and they're enslaved too. They're clearly enslaved. That doesn't make them less dangerous, but they are. They're also enslaved. So hopefully more of them will wake up and join us, because it's in their interest to do so.
Right.
Those of y'all out there that are working for the man and you think you're doing it because you're going to get some cushy retirement, think again. Has your supervisor ever lied to you before? Well, maybe it's time to stop believing everything they tell you. Stop believing that you can go out there and bash heads and murder people, and it's going to be justified somehow. It won't be. So
it's like they're taking. It's like rolling the dice with them, because some of them are getting away with it and are getting backed up, and if they're not seeing what's happening, a lot of them are being Not enough of them, but they'll pick one here and there and make them pay the price. You know, they got to show that they're doing the right thing, and they'll send one of them or two to jail. You know, I'm talking about.
They might be getting away with it in this realm, but they're not getting away with it over the long haul.
Right.
You know, and they may not believe that day is ever coming. Some of them do. You know, some devout Satanists even. There are plenty of Satanists in public service. They do believe that there could be a really unpleasant afterlife, let's put it that way, for them. And so they're going to just do whatever right now. And they're making a wrong choice. We can't do any, I mean, we can pray for them and hope that they turn their hearts to God and to his commandments. But ultimately, it's for every man or woman to decide for themselves if they're going to act in honor or they're going to do what is convenient. And it's now gotten to a point, even doing what's convenient is probably going to kill you. So we got nothing to lose and everything to gain.
I would say so.
All right. Well, let's see. If anybody wants to become, especially Ohio people, or even people outside of Ohio, go to our website, www.occr2021.com. That's occr2021.com. And you can see exactly how to contact us, what we have done, and how you can be part of that. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add here at the end?
You said there's how many on there now? 10?
10.
How many's on this thing? This video.
There's just I think it might just be us right now.
It's 4 of us now. Sometimes other people show up, and people from this really isn't connected directly to the court, but people from outside of Ohio come on here too.
Yeah.
From time to time. And we're happy to help people. When we've dealt with our business in Ohio, we're happy to help people in other state republics who are struggling. And in fact, we are a big shout out to folks in Texas, in the original Texas, Republic of Texas, who are probably going to be following what we're doing and forming their own common law assembly with a common law court and a common law grand jury. So we have made efforts with other states, people in other states, and usually it doesn't get anywhere. They're asking the wrong questions. There's just too much dissent. But the people in the Texas Republic seem to be, I think they're going to be ready. I'm going to be on one of their calls on Saturday to explain what we do. They're going to use our website as a model. I would definitely, and that was designed and created and being administered by Luciana, and I cannot overestimate how useful that site was. I didn't think it would be at first, but it keeps track of all our cases. It keeps track of everything that was filed in order. All the useful stuff is there in a organized way. So,
what happened with the guy that had what was his name? That was trying to deal with something with a smart meter.
Keith has not addressed that yet. And of course, it's more difficult to address the smart meter issue after you already have one than beforehand. I've addressed it beforehand. I was getting threatening, just subtly threatening, but I knew what they meant. That, ooh, we're having a hard time reading your meter. We can't read your meter. You've read my meter for the last 14 years. What do you mean you can't read my meter? And you need to put a smart meter on? No. I'll read the meter if you can't read the meter.
Right.
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 So how are you billing me all these 14 years if you haven't been able to read the meter?
Right. All
So
these years they've been reading meters. Everybody's gotten their bills. Everything's
Yeah.
moved along. All of a sudden they can't read the meters no more.
Right.
Right. So I served them the 3 times, and they defaulted all 3 times, and I'm not hearing anything more about it. And I lived up to my end of the deal. Every month I read that meter. I write out because I don't know how to use I don't do the photography.
Something's wacky with the sound.
I'm sorry?
Something's wacky with the sound. It sounds like you're all in a echo.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe you should mute everybody but me for the moment.
I can do that.
I can't hear it. It sounds so terrible. I can't even hear it.
Okay, let me see.
That could be stuff from where you are. But that is something that there's 2 projects that we're going to be taking on as soon as there are people wanting to take it on. One of them is the smart meters, and we're not doing anything new. That has been done previously using the 3-notice process by Cal Washington very, very effectively in Michigan, parts of Canada, and even Hawaii. And they were able to pretty well deal with that, with the smart meter issue there. And we need to deal with it even after people have already been afflicted with it. Because you can buy a safe analog meter and put it on, have an electrician put it on. And once they agree that they're in breach of contract, you can do all kinds of stuff. So anyway, so that, and then we're also doing a roadway hazard 3-notice process. And we have, in the past, we've only had 1 claimant against a lot of respondents. But with the roadway hazard deal, I think we are going to have as many claimants in Ohio as want to join us, and avoiding the pitfalls of just traveling down the road. Whether it comes from, well, you didn't register the transfer of your vehicle. Well, we don't drive vehicles. We drive automobiles and cars, and your statutes only apply to vehicles. They get you, there's about 7 or 8 major ways that they harm us when we travel on their roads. Their roads, our roads. They don't own those roads. Not yet. They'd like to, but they don't own those. We, the people, own those. Those are public roads. And they don't make the rules unless we let them make the rules. So well, we're going to do something on that, and all the rackets that go with driving down the road, traveling down the road.
Right.
So we'll talk about that in more detail. And maybe on the next broadcast, we'll talk about the hazards of traveling. What should have been an unimpeded, they called it a fundamental constitutional right. Not just any constitutional right. They called it a fundamental constitutional right. And they're messing with that to beat the band. Mm-hmm. So there are multiple ways that we can knock that out and get to admit that everything they're doing to interfere with our right to travel is unlawful, and we're going to get judgments against them. We get more people, we'll have a grand jury, and the grand jury, I assume, is going to weigh those facts that are already not in dispute and decide whether they're going to these people are going to get prosecuted. It's going to be up to us, the people, little by little, as we gain a little bit of confidence in our abilities to impose the lawful judgments of our lawful courts and grand juries. So,
Right.
okay,
So,
well,
so there has, I kind of lost track of it, that discussion about the smart meter. So there hasn't been any more done with those.
no, I have a smart meter template that
Right.
I've done myself, and it worked. But I don't know. That was not done through our court. That was just done. It didn't lead to a judgment. I'm satisfied that I have a contract with them now, and they're not going to harass me anymore.
I know we started.
Right. You sent them notices, right? Right.
Yes, I
Catherine,
did the 3 notice process. Yes,
and warned them not to trespass, right?
and the what?
And warned them not to trespass on your land.
Yes,
correct?
yes, yeah. I also posted a notice in front of my analog meter that if you not to trespass on my land, not to install a smart meter, and what the fines. I had a fee schedule with that right on the sign, right in my yard.
I know we kind of started looking at one of those against Consolidated Electric Co-op, and then kind of got tied up and wrapped up in some other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can sure do that.
Yeah, but I want to try to get back on that again too.
Mm-hmm.
And I did look at the other one, that notice of liability. Got to get it printed out. And I get back sometime. Who knows when I'll get back? But
oh yeah, right. Okay, well, yeah. Keep me informed, and we'll proceed.
right, yeah, it's just been. I mean, this is a short trip, but it takes forever because it's sitting around waiting for hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else have any last comments?
Did you guys hear about that shooting in Mansfield today?
No. What happened?
I don't really know. There was a shooting over at some park. I don't know why. I just didn't know if anybody heard about it.
You don't know who the shooter was, or
no?
No, I don't know.
No.
It seems like every day now there's mass shootings somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, we were at work when it happened, and I guess they were going down Park Avenue. But that was all I knew. So I'm sure it'll be on the news tomorrow.
Wow.
Well, it's almost getting to where, murder is just ho-hum. It's just
all the time.
Another day. Yeah, happens all the time. We're just starting to get used to it. Wanted to shout out, too, to the people in East Liverpool or East Palestine, Ohio. Anybody being affected by that, which is part of as Luciana found in her research, and I saw that before, that this is just another land grab, and you see the lengths they will go to we'll just destroy your land. And apparently the plan is to turn that into a FEMA center, a FEMA camp. We're going to have contaminated soil. What's not to like? We're going to put the slaves in a FEMA FEMA camp and get the land for dirt cheap, because nobody wants to live there anymore because we contaminated it. Business plan. So if anybody in affected by that East Palestine thing, and many people are affected by that, some more than others. If you're ready to look at real solutions and bring real accountability to the actual people who are doing this to you, then call on us. We will establish what the facts are, and they'll never be able to be challenged again in our 3 notice process. Okay. All right. So next week, same time, 9:00, and I
9
will
o'clock Thursday.
I will get the notice of this recording earlier in the day to you, to those who are on my email list. And if anybody who's listening wants to share it on Facebook or YouTube, I'm pretty well banned, I think, from Facebook now. But if anybody else wants to, please, it's important to get the word out. We have some strength just individually, but we have more strength in numbers. So
Correct.
Yes, we
Correct.
do.
More strength in the numbers, that's for sure.
okay. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay.
You guys, have a great weekend coming up here.
Yeah, you too, and have a good night.
All right.